Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 5th season, we are looking at Joe Johnston's 2011 film, Captain America: The First Avenger. I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Reel Film Podcast.
I'm Pete Wright, and I think Stanley Tucci's my spirit animal.
He's everybody's spirit animal, Pete. Today we are talking about Minute 17, which begins with Erskine questioning Steve about the many places he's supposedly from, and ends with him asking where he's really from. Joining us on the show again today and all week, Will Johnson and Don Shanahan from the Cinephile Hissy Fit Podcast. Hello again, gents.
Andy and Pete, thanks for having us back.
Yeah, appreciate it. Honored to be here. Thank you.
Neither of you are from Paramos?
No.
Paramos?
Sure.
Or
sure, yeah.
New Haven?
That's where I met my wife. Yeah.
Yeah. How'd that turn out?
Yeah, not married. So
this is a minute. This is a big minute. This is a great minute. A lot of great accent in this minute, but really it's about this conversation that we have between Steve and Abraham, Dr. Erskine. And of course, it starts off, we were talking about this in yesterday's minute, but this is that moment where Steve kind of shrugs at the fact that, you know, he's from Germany, because Erskine kind of, you know, asks him, all of this does feel like a test, which of course does come up in the questions, but this troubles you? And Steve kind of like, no. This is that moment, though, where we find out Erskine has a folder about him. He has information that he has. This is his 5th try at going through the enlistment process, failing every time. 5 different cities. This is where we're kind of like, you know, Steve is like, you know, his gig is really up at this point, and I love the way that this plays. And you know, of course, he tries playing it off. That might not be the right file, but it's really about this moment that we have between Erskine and Steve that kind of comes here. This is where we learn what is really drawing Erskine to this curious character of Steve Rogers. It's not that he's, you know, gone through 5 exams. It's that, well, it's not that he's failed 5 different cities. It's that he has tried 5 times, that he keeps trying. And it becomes the question about, you know, what do you really want to do? Let's talk about this minute, because I think there's so much going on here. Will, why don't you kick us off?
this is one of my favorite moments. I'm going to get in my soapbox here for a minute, but a lot of people complain about the formula of Marvel films. And one thing I like about this film, sure, some of them adhere to that, whatever. But one thing I like about this film is they do it it's a great script, because they do such a great job of setting up Steve. It's to the point where the origin story doesn't feel like a burden and a hoop you have to jump through. It's part of getting to know the characters. And there's little moments throughout the script that I think perfectly display who Steve Rogers is. And I like this. This is one of my favorite scenes to play for people, like when I put a supercut together or something of Steve Rogers, because it's not, the big buff Steve Rogers in the Captain America stuff. It's the essence of the character, which is, I don't care where you're from. I don't like bullies. I want to kill. The key line for me is, I don't want to kill anybody. And I like that. It goes with the MCU's, I think the reason why it's so popular is because there's this level of almost anti-machismo, anti-masculinity in the sense of what movies have been giving us, which is, muscly guys punching people and killing without remorse or without a thought. And I like the fact that the person that would become the super soldier that could probably kill anybody with a punch, that's not his motivation. His goal is not to go over there and kill as many Nazis as possible. It's to stop the bullies from picking on other people. And I like, in just such a short line, you get so much of what the character stands for. So that with the grenade scene many minutes later is probably two of my favorite scenes. And noticeably, both of those do not involve the Captain America that we know in terms of the big buff Star Spangled Banner guy. So
it's the scrawny guy.
Yep. It's all about what's inside, not what's outside.
Yeah, and we saw this. I mean, this whole "I don't like bullies" bit. I mean, we saw him demonstrate this earlier at the movie theater, right? When the loud jerk is complaining about the fact that they have to sit through a newsreel, and Steve is the one who stands up to this person who is interrupting people who genuinely are having, emotions because of what they're seeing on the screen here. Don, how did all that play for you as far as what we've seen? I mean, this is only the 17th minute of the film.
Right.
Up to this point, I mean, what's your read on Steve Rogers and everything that they've given to us at this point?
My read kind of narrows down to that word of motive. You're trying to get character intentions here in the early teens of a movie, and you get that already a bit from Erskine. The idea of just, I think what Will said last show of the idea that he's been watching this guy for a while. I know we played the happenstance card of how did he just happen to be there at this precise moment of this precise test and application? But maybe if he had been tracking him, we see motive of a guy like Erskine trying to find the right person, not just the right filled, resume, figure, or build. And then to have Steve kind of reveal just that just very vocalized mindset of what he stands for and what he believes in, that's motive and motivation for what he will be and what he'll become and what he already is. And I find that that's fantastic. And I'm a big fan of just that style of hero too, because same thing, you go back to 2011 and even before that, anti-heroes are the en vogue thing that people love. People love their alpha males that talk crap. You picture Wolverine, you picture Hugh Jackman. Yes, a lot of these heroes have a good streak underneath them and an honorable streak underneath them, but they're still anti-heroes at the end of the day. And to have I'm a Superman fan. So when you have a true blue guy like Captain America emerge, and right at the time we're going to need him for this phase, couldn't have asked for a better statement of that, of the simplicity of, I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from. So simple, so powerful, so easy, and presented so well by the 4 layers of acting that it takes to put Chris in that spot.
It's interesting too. I just reflecting on the movies that got us here, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner and Thor Odinson, they all discover their heroism by dint of circumstance, not by identity. And so this is kind of a pivot. This movie represents a heroic pivot where we have Steve, who is, as the little guy, already the hero because of what he believes in, and this becomes the identity of the Infinity Saga. He is still fighting bullies in the final battle against Thanos, who is just another bully. Just as we discover as he's fighting Red Skull, the bully. I feel like is a pivotal, not just scene in the movie and in terms of who we understand Captain America to be, but it defines a path forward for identity of heroism in the rest of the Marvel movies.
Awesome point. And that's one that I think I subconsciously knew, but never really put those pieces together. That's a really interesting viewpoint. I like that a lot. This isn't, and I think this is why it makes the origin part of it not so burdensome, because origin stories, for the most part, especially in superhero cinema, became burdensome. And I think what makes this movie so good, even though it's a quote unquote origin story, is that the character, he's already Captain America.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
The window dressing that makes him more so. So that's a great point, because I think just like you were talking about with the other 3, Thor has to find that he's worthy. Maybe a little too quickly in the movie, but we won't talk about that. But
correct.
Banner is still trying to figure out his thing, and Stark has to essentially has to have a literal change of heart to change his viewpoint on everything. It is interesting that we already have technically the character. We have the character. The origin is complete. And this scene, like I said, we can read into a lot in 1 minute, but that's kind of what you have to do in a podcast like this, is look into the nuts and bolts of a character. I mean, him saying those 2 lines, I don't want to kill anybody, I don't like bullies, wherever they're from, whatever. That is, I mean, I could show that to, where me and Don are teachers, I could show that to a class, and they could identify the characteristics of that person based on those 2 lines of dialogue. That's it. I mean, that is pure characterization, excellent script writing. And like I said, it makes the, because I won't lie, when I saw this in the theater for the first time, I was my expectations were pretty low because I was kind of tired of that origin story.
Yeah, it's the trope that they've already set up. Like, oh, we've got to wade through this for the first act of the movie.
Right. And I never felt that in this movie. Like when I was watching, I was so surprised because I was just like, wow, this is flowing well. It's, even though it's hitting some of the trope beats of an origin story, like, because the character is so fleshed out and so well written, and it's not heavy handed either.
No, it's two sentences. It's not a Hamlet soliloquy of, 4 paragraphs. Let me tell you what I believe in. No, 2 sentences and a matter of fact way of delivering it, and he's in and he's out.
Yeah, I think that performative that performative aspect there, Don, is really important because it is delivered softly. It is delivered softly. His gentleness is I think what propels it.
Well, and this is just another feather in the cap of to Kevin Feige and Sarah Haley Finn, the casting director. I mean, I'm sure her job gets easier now because they can just be like, oh, we want Bradley Cooper. Okay. But, what people forget about this first phase of the MCU is there was a lot of risk with the characters. Robert Downey Jr. was a huge risk because of his past and because of his unreliability, and he wasn't a star. They went with Thor, which was one of the probably in the phases of the MCU, there's always that one movie where you're like, this is going to be the end of it. And Thor was one of them because it was such a higher concept than what was introduced. And they went with complete unknowns for the actors. Now, Chris Evans, who I always was impressed with, I remember seeing him. I think the first time I truly saw him was in Not Another Teen Movie. And, it's not the greatest comedy.
I truly saw him too, Will.
Yeah. It's true. But, it's not like the most innovative comedy in the world, but he elevated the material. Like, he was hilarious. I remember just thinking like, man, he's hilarious. But then they kind of cast him, and he was already in Marvel movies. He was in Fantastic Four, and he was kind of the cocky, jokey person. And they kind of put him in movies like that. And to be able to see his ability to have these layers, like to be able to take Johnny Storm away and put Steve Rogers here, and then have him essentially become the corners. I mean, Tony Stark is like the Avengers, but really by the time you get to Endgame, it's really Captain America that's, he's the hammer. He's the assemble. He's got everything going like that. He's the leader, And
that's the head and heart that Tony Stark and Steve Rogers play.
But that takes, like I said, to Kevin Feige and Sarah Haley Finn and casting for these movies to be able to see that in them. To me, this was another, because I did go into this movie thinking, oh, Johnny Storm? Like, I almost didn't take it seriously. And
same here. He's such a cocky guy, like in Cellular and in other movies, or like The Perfect Score. Like,
The Losers right before this.
Yeah. Oh, The Losers right before this, where he's just kind of a dopey, funny guy, which is wonderful. I love dopey, funny Chris.
Sure.
But no, to hear Feige want him bad too, like, Evans turned them down 3 times before Downey talked him into this movie because he was worried about the effects of fame on his just acting career. And he's probably a little bit right, hindsight 2020, where it's going to be hard for him to, now it's going to be hard for him to not be true blue and perfect. I know he was like a villain in Knives Out, where that admittedly is a hard, tough sell for him, where you have to bring back cocky a-hole Chris, and
he'll be another one again in Gray Man coming up.
Right,
he'll be another mustachioed, cocky. But that what you're talking about, Don, is what got him Lightyear too. That's why he is Lightyear, because if you needed the more serious version of Tim Allen, that would be the tried and true Captain America Lightyear. Like,
totally.
Who would you think of other than Chris Evans?
Right.
Perfect casting.
What's also great about the way that he plays the line is it's not falling into at the time it takes place or at the time of production, like that American jingoism of like that whole "I want you" poster. I mean, we've seen it all on the walls with all the different artwork and everything, kind of like selling on America and everything. And like his simple line, "I don't want to kill anyone. I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from." It has none of that. And I think that's a key part of not just Captain America in the films, but also in the comics, that they found a way to latch onto this idea of this character who, it wasn't necessarily about America, but it was about that ideal of what a person could be as a representative of their country. And I feel like that's another very simple thing that isn't necessarily even spelled out here, but it so importantly defines his character, especially as he will kind of move through specifically kind of his own films. But
yeah, because I think I talked about this the last episode, and I won't go too much into it, but Captain America becomes such a symbol, and it's such a misinterpreted symbol. The iconography of Captain America can be misinterpreted so much. Like I said, I've seen different political ideologies use Captain America in different ways, use the same character in different ways. And that's why these moments, like in this minute, is so important. And as Pete was saying, it's a fully fleshed character from the get-go, is because it isn't about, if for instance, to me, like if Captain America was a DC character and we were in the DC movies, the emphasis would be on the costume. It would be on the shield. It would be on, putting the helmet on and stuff. But like I said, the essence of this character is not, he just happens to be in America and has these views. So he's Captain America. He would be Captain Canada or Captain Argentina or whatever, wherever he was, because of who the character
Argentina.
is. Yeah.
Can we bring back the Colombian accent in here? Because that'd be awesome.
Escobar,
Capitan
can we
Colombia.
get that going?
Yeah, here we go.
No. The only accent I can do is Jared Leto in House of Gucci. I'm not gonna do
It's a good one. Let it loose.
that.
Hey, it's a Gucci. Hey, it's a Gucci. I'm a Mario.
Where there's one, there's many. Come on. Okay.
I don't even remember what we were talking about.
No. Here, I'll segue us back. What I like what you said, Pete, is like how soft that line is delivered from Evans. The fun part is for me, it's matched and returned just as equally softly from Tucci when he does that sentence of maybe we need a little guy. It's not a hoorah moment of you're right, Steve. Maybe we need a little guy. It's it's matter of factly stamping that paper and sending him on his way. It's softness for softness is really well done.
Well, and I got to step back again because the setup for this whole thing is Steve asking, "Is this a test?" And Tucci's look is so perfect. Yes, it's a test, right? Yeah. Yes, like he's so again matter of fact. Like that should be obvious, right? Asked and answered. Yes, it's a test.
It's a great moment. Such a great moment.
He has a lot of subtle in the future. There's a great moment later where he offers Steve a drink and they says, "Oh, wait a minute, you have a procedure." And he's like, "What about you?" And he's like, "I don't have a procedure." Little cute little moments like that really help give dimension to a character, and especially a character who's, when you really think about it, his character is in essence a plot device because he's supposed to get Steve from A to B and then he gets killed off.
Yeah, right.
So in order to give some meaning to a character like that, you have to have a really good actor that puts that dimension in there, because then it's not just, oh, he died. It's, holy crap, I can understand now what his motivations were to, for Captain America to leap into action, when Erskine is killed. It adds all kinds of dimension. And that once again goes to not only the great performances, but the wonderful script for this.
Well, and performatively, it's what makes that death of Erskine. This scene makes that death heartbreaking, right?
Right.
It's that death that makes me want this plot device to have stayed in the movie with me because I was comfortable. I liked him. He's affable. I learned from him, and it's beautiful.
It's still effective in the first Iron Man, but it's a little rushed. The same plot device exists with the guy that helps him
in the cave.
This one has a little bit more oomph to it.
Right. For me, the comps for me would be, and it's hiring great actors to do small parts. Is obviously the Superman parallels are there where you get Glenn Ford being Pa Kent, and I know that death doesn't happen right in front of Clark, per se, but just his the man to father moments that aren't many, but Glenn nails him when he needs to, and then his death is all tragic as could be. And then Cliff Robertson, who's an Oscar winner, we all forget, playing Uncle Ben for Tobey Maguire in the Spider-Man movies, where his resonance is there just enough. We know Uncle Ben's a goner, and any Spider-Man fan knows. But how can Cliff get the most out of what's there? And he does. So what when I compare it to other moments that you are supposed to have some heft that feel short, squandered, or just untapped, those are out there too. Dime a dozen.
It's very much kind of that mentor character that you get in the hero's journey, and that's who they all kind of fit in with. But what I also love about him, and we'll actually get to talk about this a little bit tomorrow, is there's some fun parallels between Steve and Schmidt, but then you also have Erskine and Arnim as kind of their
opposite,
kind of the mad scientists on each side, I suppose you could say. So,
yeah, definitely.
So we'll get to talk about that a little bit. So at this point, we have Erskine offering him a chance, only a chance. He gets this little chance, and Steve, of course, is going to take it. This is kind of the moment where Steve is finally. It seems like things are going to go his way. I have a question. Do you think? I mean, he's giving him a chance, only a chance. If Steve wasn't the right guy for this, would he? This is just kind of like total speculation. Would he still have been able to serve in the army at this point? Like, because now he's seems like he's going to get approved. I mean, what do you think?
Are you saying like the moment before the stamp in the file, or the moment after the stamp in the file? Like Steve wanted to, he could run out the door and go join whatever he wanted to join with that magical stamp. But to follow this SSA path given to him, I think the loyal Steve's going to follow the person who gave him faith. Like I think the choice is a no-brainer for Steve to do SSA, or SSR.
It's more a dramatic touch than Like if he really got the stamp, it probably would have been like, oh, you'll report to this place at this time. But for the dramatic sense of the movie, it's like stamp because they established it earlier. Mm-hmm. The 4F. Now he gets the 4F.
He'll get the 1A. Well, we'll find out tomorrow what he'll get. But yeah, I mean, but the idea is like, does he? If he's getting a chance, like, maybe this is a conversation to have, like when he actually goes up against the grenade. But, if he didn't prove himself to be what Erskine was actually looking for, I guess my question was, he was at that point approved to be somebody who could serve. And if Erskine said, you know what, I'm going to keep looking, would Steve have been able to keep serving, or would he have just been shuffling paperwork?
I think Erskine would have shuffled that paperwork and washed him out. Like if he would have saw the 5 attempts, I think he kind of knew. But at the same time, if something were to come up, I think he'd be like, well, you've tried too many times, little man. You're out. I think he would have watched him out.
But I don't think that ever would have happened because to Will's point from yesterday, there's no way. He's been tracking him now. My headcanon is Erskine's actually been watching him since he was 14.
I love it. Look at you. Look at Will busting this whole movie apart.
He totally broke it.
And another thing.
Don't change your mind, Will. Don't change your mind.
No.
You already had me sold.
No. What I was going to say, too, is I think what people forget, and this will be in future minutes, which we won't be on here for that, but, Steve is supposed to be essentially the test gerbil, I guess, for this program. What's really going to happen is there's supposed to be an entire platoon of these guys. There's supposed to be an entire platoon of Captain Americas. What happens is obviously there's some sabotage. Everything gets destroyed. There's only one. So I think a lot of people automatically assume it was just meant for one person, but like this is supposed to be like the ultimate test to see if it works. And then they would give it to probably even that jerk guy that we're going to meet in our 20th minute. That's like, Queen Victoria. Like they were going to give it to a lot of people. And I'm sure there would have been a lot of failures in there too. So I think this is more a purity test of like, see if I can give it to the heart before the heart and mind before the brawn.
That's actually an interesting point that, we'll have much more to say when far, far, far down the road in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because of how that can potentially affect people who aren't necessarily of the right mindset that Steve happens to be.
Oh yeah, and I have to interrupt the program for a minute to stake my claim that you must have me on for that show. So it's my favorite. If you can't tell behind me, I've got my Sam Wilson Captain America stuff everywhere. I'm huge fan. So you got to get me on that show.
Well, in 20 years or so, when we finally get to that, we'll reach back out.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they're moving at a much faster pace than we are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't think I have anything else for this minute. Do any of you have any last thoughts with minute 17?
No, I'm good. This is like Will said, this is a champion moment. I love it.
Yeah. Top-notch minute. All right. Well, can the two of you come back for tomorrow's minute?
I guess so.
1A or 1F or 1.8 or whatever.
Wherever we're going to end up, whatever that stamp's going to be. Well, I do love right at the very end of this minute, as you have Erskine, saying you've got a chance. I love that he's kind of fumbling around with the stamps on the desk, like, which is the one? Like, I like that there's actually like a little bit of stamp play that we have.
Drama.
Yeah.
So,
stamp drama. Exactly.
Teach that at the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Only a chance. Only a chance.
Well, why don't the two of you remind everybody about your podcast and where they can find it?
So if you search Cinephile Hissy Fit, you'll find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all that good stuff. You could find Will Johnson and I on Letterboxd if you really want to dig into our ratings and why I'm, what I write and whatever Will puts his opinions on. Other than that, you can find the Cinephile Hissy Fit as part of the Ruminations Radio Network and sponsored by 25 Well. You can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you want to find good places to listen.
Fantastic. Remember, you can join our Discord community if you go to truestory.fm/Marvel Movie Minute. Just click on the Discord link. You can hop in there and be a part of the community. And Pete, any last thoughts from you?
I could do this all day.
Yes, you can. Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Spread the News by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, consider doing that for this show.